Are we in the midst of a PR revolution? That's the subject of today's edition of Inside AB. I'm Jeremy Lawrence and I'm joined here in the studio by the co-founder of the Qode PR, marketing and events agency, Ayman Fakoussa. Ayman, welcome to Inside AB.
Thank you.
And firstly, congratulations because the Qode just announced an international partnership last week. So these are the guys, you've got Karla Otto there,
exactly.
PR agency, and we've got K2, an events PR company based out of China, I believe.
Out of Asia, and then Alexander Wirtz, who's the global director for Karla Otto.
Okay.
So together they have 11 global offices. The Qode will be number 12. So,
fantastic. And we should point out that's Dipesh Tapala, who's the co-founder of the Qode, not to leave him out there.
Not at all.
Okay, so the reason that we're here today is to talk about how dramatically the PR industry has changed, but also, of course, media and events as well, which is part of the reason why you formed this global partnership, because here in the Middle East, we have to be at the cutting edge, and being part of the independence is going to help that process. So we've talked before in the interview you did last week with Arabian Business about the seminars you've already been on with the independents, where you've learned, for example, about the progress that's happening in China with WeChat.
Correct.
If you could tell us about that.
You know, when you talk about things like WeChat has revolutionized the way people are actually doing business, the way that banks are doing banking. I mean, WeChat is a one-stop shop. This is something we learned at the seminar, but we had a little training about WeChat. You open one app and basically you're doing your banking, you're paying your children's school fees, you're shopping, you're doing conference calls, everything is on one app. So, you know, for us, Dipesh and I left, we were fascinated, thinking like, okay, well, this is our future, like that's going to happen. So, you know, it's really great to have that global perspective.
And the brands are using it to do their campaigns, and you've got influencers that are specific to WeChat.
Absolutely. So brands are now, you know, of course, utilizing this as a tool for marketing.
So let's move on. Let's talk about the way the business has changed from the PR perspective, because of course now everyone's a content creator.
Correct.
It used to just be you, the PR agency, and me, the journalist, and it was very easy really, but it's all changed. So tell us a little bit about that shift.
You know, we've actually hired a head of content now, and it's something that brands all want. You know, we're creating content for brands, but then you have, of course, the influx of influencers who have become content creators, and brands are really jumping on this bandwagon, and it's unavoidable. You know, so whereas we were dealing with a handful of journalists, like we've worked together in the past for many years. You know, it now has become a whole slew of influencers. First there was the big influencers, now there's a trend of micro influencers, and we're literally, like, part of our job is even researching, like, you know, interesting influencers. When we work with a streetwear brand, we want young, cool, you know, kids, and then, you know, we want a beauty blogger, you know, who has millions of followers. So we're literally, you know, the scope of our work has changed significantly, because we're not just in touch with, let's say, 100 journalists. We now have to be in touch with 1,000 people. And, you know, within our industry, you know, obviously, like as PR professionals and as journalists, we have a certain way of working, and we know the drill. We know how it works. When you're dealing with you know, influencers, and certain influencers, you know, it's a pleasure working with, and then, you know, you have people who it's not their industry. You know, they're someone with a phone, and at the end of the day, like, you know, you have KPIs, you have certain things that you have to deliver to the client. You need to make sure that those things are delivered. Working with people who may not be familiar with how a luxury brand operates, or how a client is expecting you know, things to be delivered.
Well, yeah, it must be like herding cats. It was, like I say, it was also much simpler in the old days.
It was much simpler,
But times change. So the other side of your business, you do a lot in terms of events, much as our company does, Arabian Business and ITP. We talked, you talked in the interview about how much more important events are now, especially those Instagrammable moments at events. So explain that a little bit more.
It's really experience. It's a brand experience, and you know, more and more that, you know, in the industry, when we talk about events, we don't talk about an event, we talk about a brand experience. We talk about immersing people into the brand and finding ways to do that. You know, when you're a global agency like the Independents and Karla Otto K2, the idea is to look at what's the brand experience and how do you customize it to each industry and each market. We are familiar with the cultural nuances. Myself, I've grown up here all my life in the region and in Saudi Arabia. moved away. But I mean, I understand the region very well, and same with Depeche.
And what we know about the culture of this place is when people go to an event, they like to take a lot of pictures.
Oh, they love to take pictures. Yeah, and so that's really like, this Instagrammable moment has become, shareable
Key.
content, shareable moments. I mean, that's become key because again, you want a ripple effect of your event. So the more pictures people are taking, the more Insta stories they're taking,
and
the more Snapchat
amplifies.
Yeah, it amplifies your message. People see it. So I mean, we recently did an event for Givenchy, and literally it was all over social media. The next day, everyone was saying, "Oh, you had a Givenchy event." It's just become so so important to have those moments because then you get the message across.
Now we've talked about influencers, but I just wanted to dig in because you said something interesting when I asked you in the interview for print about whether they add value, and you had something very interesting to say about when they do and when they don't, and also about the case of Boutique Hat in Q8.
Correct. So it's very interesting because it is a double-edged sword. Working with influencers can be really beneficial. It can also do nothing for your brand, and it can on the third scenario also be damaging to your brand. So it really we find that brands sometimes get it wrong. They work with certain influencers, like there was the case recently of a Qode influencer who exactly, and we worked with her a lot in the past.
Right.
And literally overnight, we couldn't, we would not work with her as an agency, including most of our brands. And
just to explain to the viewers, Sonda Salkatan, she said some inadvisable comments about maids and whether they should be given time off, etc., etc. Big backlash.
It was really, horrendous. And for us as an agency, immediately we said we don't work with people like that, obviously. But someone who's coming from abroad may not know that, and that's where you could work with someone who also has been promoting competition a lot, or is associated with certain brands, or is associated with certain scandals, or whatever it is. So it's really important, that an influencer can be a very positive thing and a very negative thing. What we have found really with the beauty industry is that, and this is super interesting, we will promote certain products like a shade of lipstick, which will literally sell out within minutes. Because a certain influencer has been promoting it, talking about it, it drops in the stores, and suddenly it's wiped out. The same thing happens with these sneakers that drop, and there's that whole sneaker culture, and there's this wave and this revolution of people getting very excited about certain products, and influencers can really help that, and to help to drive that.
And just briefly tell us about Boutique Hat.
Yes, so Boutique Hat is a really interesting platform which was created in Kuwait, and basically what it is, it's like micro boutiques for influencers where they promote the beauty products that they like. And it's funny because initially it was only mass brands that were using it, and suddenly we started seeing very luxurious brands asking us what we think. And I mean, well, what we think is that yes, we've seen how much it can drive sales with certain brands, and people have jumped on that bandwagon, and it's worked really well. It's a very interesting concept. I mean, I think at the end of the day, people are seeing the power of influence and using it for retail, and then the brands see the benefit and use that as well.
Great. Let's look ahead. So we've talked about all the big changes we've seen since the Qode was founded 8 years ago, is it?
Yeah, 8.5.
So what do you predict in the next few years ahead for the industry?
Well, I think we're at a very interesting time because people's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. Like we used to do 30-second influencers for 30-second videos, for social media, and now people are saying you need 10-second videos. I read a statistic that within the first 2 seconds of watching a video, whether you're going to continue watching that video or not. Wow. So how do you capture people's attention? This is and this is essentially what we're doing as marketeers, right? We want to capture the attention of consumers. How do we capture their attention within that split second that you need to make your point? And so it's changing already. We're seeing that change, and we went from like 30 to 20 to 10-second videos. Like I don't know what's next. Is it 1-second videos? And this is where we really have to adapt very quickly and understand what are the changes and really look at other markets. And this is where being part of the Independence and part of a global network, you know, where we share ideas and you know, we meet a couple of times a year.
Well, congratulations on that, and thanks for running us through the PR landscape.
We're very excited. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us on Inside AB. Congratulations, by the way, for your attention span, because we normally keep these about 4 minutes. That was such a fascinating conversation. We ran way beyond it. So thank you for sticking with us. Subscribe, comment, and share as usual, and we'll see you next time. Bye.